Imagine with me, it's March, it's spring break time. The weather's hot, but there's not a cloud in the sky. It's about 90 degrees, it's muggy. There's really not a breeze, but it's a beautiful day. And now we come across this family of 7, 2 grandparents, 2 parents, and 3 kids. They are 3 days into a 5-day Disney vacation. They've enjoyed their time at the resort. They've enjoyed their time at the parks. And today they got up early and they arrived at the Magic Kingdom before it opened, and they've enjoyed rides, they've enjoyed food, they've enjoyed ice cream, and they've even met a couple of the characters. But it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And as I mentioned before, it's a hot day, so the family is tired, they're sweaty, they're ready for a break. Dad gets out a map and he starts to study the map, but what happens is Dad doesn't know what he's doing. So Mom gently comes along and says, hey, why don't you ask somebody for help? The family right now is in the middle of Main Street with hundreds of people. The castle is off to one side, and then the train station is off to the other. So they're there. Dad finds a cast member and walks up to this cast member and asks the question that every cast member has been trained to answer. When's the 3 o'clock parade? The cast member doesn't come back with a sarcastic comment. Well, it's at 3 o'clock, and when you learn to tell time when you were in 2nd grade, that's when the big hand is on the 12 and the little hand is on the 3. No, that's not what this cast member did. This cast member has been trained, so this cast member automatically made eye contact with the guest, told them her name, and just began to sort of figure out the situation. She saw that Dad was hot and sweaty. Kids were hanging all over Dad. Grandpa looked like he needed a coffee break. Grandma's looking at every store on Main Street and trying to decide, where do I shop? And Mom just looks tired. So here's what the cast member says. She does answer the question, but she says, you know what? It's a hot day here at the Magic Kingdom, and even Mickey Mouse needs some shade. So the 3 o'clock parade is going to start just in a little bit, but I would suggest that you go over here to the Emporium and sit in front of it. There's going to be shade. You'll feel the air conditioning from the store. And what will happen is, you know, the parade starts back in Frontierland and makes its way all the way to us, and it's about 3:15. So you've got a little over an hour to spare. So Grandma, you can go and do shopping all to your heart's content, all in air conditioning. Mom, sit down there and just save seats for the family. And Grandpa, there's a Starbucks right across the street. Dad, you can walk the kids around and you can help provide just an opportunity for them to kind of waste the time until the parade gets here. So what did this cast member do? Did she serve them? Absolutely, she served them. But she provided for them an experience. And that's what we want to talk about today is customer experience. And so we want to look at customer experience as that it's a couple things. It's mission driven and it's customer focused. But also it's there to equip, it's also there to empower, and it's also there to engage. So where do we go from here? Well, let's start with this idea of what is customer experience? Like, is it just customer service? And why do you keep using the term customer? Isn't the customer just somebody who pays for our services? So I think we need to start with the definitions. And the definitions of a customer is this. It's somebody who chooses to invest in a person or an organization. And they choose to do this due to the investment that the organization or that person gives to them. It's a choice. It's not something that's forced upon them. So you're my customer and I'm your customer. So that's the right definition of a customer, somebody who chooses to invest because of your investment. So what is customer experience? Well, it's an ongoing effort. Notice it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing effort to know and live the mission of the organization, as well as to know, educate, and serve the customer. So now that we know the definitions and what we're talking about, where do we start? Well, I think the beginning is a very good place to start. And you know what? It's because it's really easy to start at the beginning. And sometimes when I look at the beginning of things, I think about my ABCs. I think about what my 2nd grader is learning in school. He is learning how to know his ABCs and master them so he can read and write. Same thing with customer experience. You've got to know the basics, the building blocks of customer experience so that you can begin to build a plan. And those 4 building blocks or ABCs are integrity, empathy, creativity, and courage. So let's define them a little bit. Integrity, it's just who you are. So if you're part of an organization, the organization needs to be who they are. You need to be who you are. The Bible tells us that we should make our yes, yes, and our no, no. We need to live in a world where people know that when we say something or we say we're who we are, that's integrity. That's number one. Everything is built on integrity. Number two, empathy. It's the awareness to be able to know the needs, wants, attitudes, and perceptions of others. You've got to be able to put yourself in their shoes and think about it from the idea that they're the main character and you're not. So that's empathy. In Romans 12, it talks about how we're supposed to outdo one another in showing honor. If I want to show honor to you, I'm getting to know you. I'm allowing you to get to know me. That's empathy. So integrity, empathy. The third is creativity. And you might throw your hands up here and go, wait, I'm not creative. I can't make something out of nothing. So let me tell you what I mean by creativity. It's innovation and it's risk. It's the ability to take something that's already there and apply it to something new. Because every one of your customers are going to be different. So where do we see this in Scripture? Well, Genesis 1 is a perfect chapter to go to for creativity. Genesis 1:27 says that you and I were created in the image of God. So we're in the Imago Dei. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So God, creator, we were created by God. God, creative, we need to be creative. So integrity, empathy, creativity, and the last is courage. And that's just the ability to be compassionate, but also conviction. So you need compassionate conviction. Not the idea of conviction and running over people, but compassion of going back to the empathy and knowing who you're serving. So it's integrity, it's empathy, it's creativity, and it ends with courage. So now that we have the building blocks, where do we go from here? Well, after you have the building blocks, you can develop a plan, or what I want to call a blueprint. So why do we call it a blueprint? Well, I call it a blueprint because really all a blueprint is a plan. It takes all the essential elements and puts them together so that somebody can build something. I have a blueprint for my house that was built back in the 1990s. I can take that blueprint 20 years later, hand it to a brand new contractor, and he or she can understand my house. A blueprint is readable, it's understandable, and it's transferable. But every blueprint is not the same. My house is different than your house. Your house is different than somebody else's house. So a blueprint is there to be able to have the ability to read and understand when you're developing the plan, but it's also there so that you can be creative and you can fit a certain customer. So let's lay out how you develop this blueprint. And it starts with understanding the definition again. So customer experience is an ongoing effort to know and live the mission, but also to know, educate, and serve the customer. So let's break this down. To know and live the mission, that's integrity. You've got to know and live your mission. You have to be aware of your mission, then you've got to buy into it. And if you can't buy into the mission of your organization, maybe you're in the wrong organization. Because after you have the awareness and the buy-in, you have to have the ownership. And it's not based upon your title. You are now personally accountable to make sure that that mission is lived out, that you know it and that you live it out. So number one is know and live the mission. After that is knowing the customer, and that's empathy. And how do you get to know somebody? Well, we have a kind of a tool that we would like you to use, and it's called a customer experience insight. And what this insight does is gives you a picture of the customer, of what they need, of what they want, of what they think, and what they feel. Now, what they need is kind of difficult. You're going to have to think through this. You're going to have to wrestle with this because they're not always going to tell you, but this is what they're buying. Now, what they want, they're going to tell you what they want. How they feel, you're going to be able to see that. And how they think, you're going to be able to see that as well. But what you're doing is you're taking that information and then you're applying it because now you know the customer. So now that you know and live the mission, know the customer, now you've got to educate the customer. And here's the creativity. Everything about education is creative. Yes, there's a foundation to learn your ABCs, but you can't teach the ABCs the same to one student and to the next. You've got to be creative because some kids get it, other kids don't. So when you're doing that creativity, you're trying to decide for your customer, what are the desired customer outcomes? What do I want them to think, feel, and respond because of our event or our service? So customer insights, the picture, customer experience approach is kind of the way that we attack it. So how do you want them to think? What do you want them to think because of your event or your service? What do you want them to feel? And then how do you want them to respond? So now that we know and live the mission, we know the customer, we're educating the customer, now we can serve the customer. And this requires courage. And it's the courage to step up and do something. as well as the courage to stand back and let other people do things. One of my mentors told me that leaders give up the things that they love to do. So in serving, it's not always doing, sometimes it's letting other people do, and that's the experience. Like going back to the story of the dad and the family at Disney World. It wasn't that the cast member walked them to the Emporium. That was still their choice, but she provided an opportunity for them to have that experience, and that's what it's about. So it's knowing and living the mission, knowing the customer, educating the customer, and serving the customer. So customer experience is an approach. It's a mindset. It's something that we've got to do daily, but it's something that we can do that really will make a difference in the lives of people. Yes, people expect us to serve them, but when we actually provide for them experience, we're seeking to serve them, we're seeking to know them. And when we do that, we can make customer experience mission-driven and customer-focused, because customer experience is the ongoing effort to know and live the mission, as well as to know, educate, and serve the customer.